I was seriously thinking that maybe the XDB elements, they do seem to have or need more love and care, at least from the previous version in 9 environment. They do consume, and they seem to be required to be separate from the XP experience, like the rest of the site, simply because the site works just fine with the versions.
You're talking about from the database.
Yeah, from a database perspective, I believe that the
well, before, up until 9, we were using Mongo for that, so it was a separate database management system entirely, and then.
But we were using Mongo for capturing data. For once we wanted to analyze it, it was still SQL. Mm-hmm. In this case, it seems that the reporting and the sharding, well, not the sharding, but the reporting and the capture is taking a toll into the database, and that in turn takes a toll in the website. So whenever somebody runs a deep report, or reports need to be run, or something needs to be updated, that can affect the website, and it's something that you cannot control directly. So
not without separating those databases onto separate database instances.
Yes, and that's something that we're looking into, like seeing how many databases should we split things to improve the performance overall, so that we don't need to have such a big instance for everything, and we can split it maybe in smaller instances and only have a bigger instance where we want the resources to be, like anything on performance related, like reporting or any of those things. Maybe we need a bigger instance. Right. Because, like I said, we actually went for 3 times the size of the database between Sitecore 8 and Sitecore 9, and it was simply because we were still putting everything in a single database system. And I can see how when the XDB system is not running, we disable it for testing purposes. We don't need the triple capabilities. It's like more than enough what we were used to running. So Sitecore, it's not that Sitecore 9 is less efficient than Sitecore 8. Is more like the things that got put around Sitecore 8 to make it into Sitecore 9 made it so that the database needs to have it more bulky or capable, or divided more into different sections.
Yeah, I think the reason why you also had to do that is because with 9, they introduced this change tracking on the XDB shard databases, so that any changes are basically tracked, and that raises an event that allows for the tracking the individual data. So I think that's where you are required to check on the database sizes on the higher versions.
Yeah, but also if you were to add up your Mongo clustered instances was 3 machines or 4 Linux machines running you on the cloud at $150 each or something like that.
No.
How much was it?
80 or 90, I think. It's a Linux instance, right?
Yeah, it's a Linux instance, but for example,
but if you have it highly available, it's 3 instances.
3 instances, but I was running the micro instances, almost the smallest ones, because it didn't require a lot of heavy lifting. And since I had 3, whenever one of them, for whatever reason, went dead, the others will pick it up, and I will just restart the instance, and that's it. It was pretty easy. The difficulty with managing Mongo in that sense is that it's much better. Mongo is much better, at least in my experience, in Linux. And you need to have somebody that understands Linux in order to maintain it. Right. So and most people that are .NET, not necessarily are Linux oriented. I don't want to disregard everybody.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But it tends to be that way.
We have clients that they always try to push on using everything Microsoft. At least because their IT departments, they don't know Linux. Actually,
right, right. They're not comfortable managing it, and it's another system to manage and another set of requirements to have, which is understandable, right? Especially since you select the CMS to be a .NET, IIS, Microsoft sort of capable CMS system.
So let's say you had a new customer, and they wanted to go on Sitecore 10, and they didn't care. We were managing it, so they didn't care whether we used Mongo or SQL Server. What would you recommend? And we were in the cloud. We were in either Azure or AWS.
I'm very curious on Docker. I'm really curious on that one. I will say that SQL Server works fine. It seems to be working just fine. But I will want to go more into dividing all the XM side of this out of the XP, so that you can have, so that the XP experience can be sort of like protected out of the other elements inside.
Right, but
So to your
my question is, if the customer doesn't care, we have the capabilities to support Mongo, and our hypothesis is that performance per dollar wise, it's better to use Mongo on Linux versus using SQL Server. What would you recommend from where we're seeing the product going?
Mm-hmm.
Are they making Mongo a second-class citizen, or is it still enough of a first-class citizen that we would still like to do Mongo?
Yeah, from my perspective, I would go with SQL Server. The reason being that that was the instance that was introduced with 9, and I think it's more battle tested than the Mongo instance. And most likely, many of the people who use 9, they didn't have the option to choose Mongo at a time, and they would have gone to SQL Server, and that's more tried and tested now. And
but that was only like 6 months that Mongo wasn't supported or something like that, right?
No, I think it was a bit longer.
It was longer.
12 months?
I think it was a whole release. I believe I don't remember if it was for the full
from
9.0
to 9.1.
I think so, something like that. I didn't need to check.
Yeah, from 8.0 to 9.
And that's the other thing, is like, why did they rush it back in? It might be that, as Prasanth, you're mentioning, everybody that got into the 9.3 in Sitecore, since they couldn't keep their Mongo databases, they basically migrated to SQL, or they waited out into 9.2, where they could keep Mongo available. So it will be interesting to look at the statistics and see what exactly everybody's using. We, at least in my project, we haven't used Mongo again, simply because we started in 9 and we carried out in 9 thing.
Right. I mean, the way I see it is that even when there was Mongo, people were asking for, can we do it in SQL Server? Can we do it in SQL Server to maintain the IT teams were confident on SQL Server, but not on Mongo. So they were like, can we do it on SQL Server and not Mongo? So with 9, that was a reality, and SQL Server was the version they released. So I think most likely many people are the same boat of Windows IIS, Windows system. So SQL Server fits in well with the maintenance of their system. So they go with the SQL Server most likely. That's how I see it. It's very less likely that they would ask for a Mongo instance.
I agree. It's there was a market reason that people wanted SQL Server as their database for
Okay, but outside of the market reason, is there anything else? Because I think our consensus is that performance per price, per dollar, is better on Mongo than it is on SQL Server.
The Mongo performance thing that we are thinking is prior to 9 version, when they had Mongo integrated, right? With 9, they revamped the whole architecture, right? So we don't know, I don't know whether we have data points showing Mongo after 9 release with Mongo, any better improvement or not. It's more likely we are saying it is performance better because it's a NoSQL database and it can handle these kinds of data more better than SQL Server. But at least I haven't seen issues from the community saying that their SQL Server is being pegged and they're having performance issues with the SQL Server when it comes to XConnect. So that makes me feel that the SQL Server from a performance standpoint has been able to withstand the performance needs of the clients. And unless we see something on the Mongo side that clients are performing better, I would stay with the SQL Server.
I haven't really seen, I guess I haven't really looked, but I haven't seen a lot of noise about people using Mongo on 9.x. And maybe we need some benchmarking on it.
I haven't seen either benchmarking about it. The only reason that I bring it up, but the ones that I have, is based on my own personal experience in the projects. basically the XDB side of the project never bothered us, in the sense of it had very little maintenance even, and consumed very little resources overall, and the system still was working just fine. While in 9, we had to adapt a bit more in order to support the XDB systems.